it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel and happy Artsy Fartsy Friday. At long last, I'm finally bringing you my comprehensive Arteza review video. In this video, I am just going to be briefly summarizing all of my extensive reviews of each Arteza product that I've tried and trying to condense it into a simplified form for you as a consumer to have one convenient place to get some very general information about all of these supplies, and also outsource you to those individual reviews if you're interested in learning more about one particular product. In addition to recapping my initial reviews, I'm also going to be providing you with any updates to my reviews or any additional tips that I've learned throughout using these products over the past few months. I'm also going to be giving you a rating from 1 to 5 stars about my actual thoughts about the product and if I recommend it, or if there's something else I recommend instead. And I'm also going to just be providing you some general information about Arteza as a company, because I always think it's good to know about the company you are buying from. And I'm going to try and do it in a very condensed, fast-paced video. So buckle up, because I don't want this to get too lengthy. Before we get into the individual reviews, I wanted to take a minute to say a big thank you to my patrons. This video specifically was brought to you in part by Rachel, Lisa, Vienna, and Janine. So thank you so much to my amazing Patreon family for making this video possible. And without further ado, let's get into talking about our first product. Taking a trip down memory lane, I'm going to be talking about the very first Arteza product that I ever tried, and that is their 12 half pan watercolor set. This was the very first product that I picked out on their site, and the one that I was most eager to try out when I received it. It almost reminds me exactly of the Winsor & Newton Pocket Cotman Travel Watercolor Palette, whatever it's called, which is what I compared this to in the initial review that you can check out in the iCard above if you're interested in learning more about this product and how it compares to Winsor & Newton. But overall, I think this is a really simple and travel-friendly watercolor palette. It retails for $24.99, which is pretty comparable for similar products on the market. You get 12 half pans of watercolors. It also comes with a little water brush that comes apart. It unfortunately does not fit within the palette, and even more unfortunately is not my favorite water brush, and it's not even my favorite water brush that Arteza makes. They make much better ones. In general, I will say I prefer the ones with a blue barrel over the ones with the little red caps. So if you see these on the Arteza website, I do not recommend them. But it does come in this set, which makes it very travel friendly again, and it is a nice little bonus perk. It's just personally not my favorite. To expand on that just a little bit more, I find that too much water leaks through the bristles, making it really hard to get concentrated pigments and fine lines. The watercolor tin itself is metal, which makes it really durable, and you do get a lot of mixing space. Overall, I don't think you can beat how compact this watercolor palette is. This would fit in literally any pencil pouch and is so easy to take on the go. You do have this little ring to make it easy to hold. Not that I would actually ever be cool enough to hold my palette like this while painting. As I've mentioned, the colors in this palette are super vibrant, and I actually painted one of my favorite illustrations thus far this year using this watercolor palette. I think this is a set that would be really great for beginners, for students, and for on-the-go painting. Like I've already mentioned, it's super compact and travel sized, which I love. However, I do want to be wary of those of you who are looking for something that is more archival quality, that is going to last for years and years. I don't think this is going to be the palette for you, and I would not recommend it for creating artwork that you intend to sell for that reason. So just little words to the wise there. I don't think this is light fast, and I don't think it is archival quality. So if that is something you're looking for, you're going to have to pay the price of a more professional quality watercolor set. But this is really great for starting out. If you haven't tried watercolors, this is a set that I would totally recommend you getting your feet wet with, because it is super user-friendly. Overall, I give this product 4.5 stars out of 5 because I think it is near perfect, with the one exception of this little water brush, which you don't need. Honestly, there are plenty of other travel watercolor brushes, and the fact that it doesn't even fit in this set really kind of knocks it down a peg for me. If it fit in the set, I might be a little bit more forgiving with it, but the fact that it's not that good and doesn't fit in the set, you're better off getting a better water brush and keeping it externally from the palette anyway. Now moving on to the next product, I'm going to be talking about the Gouache. This is the 24 tube set. Each tube is 12 milliliters, and I gotta be honest, this is still the first and only gouache that I have really tried. I've swatched a few other brands, but I haven't actually completed a full painting with any gouache besides the Arteza gouache. So I would recommend it as a beginner gouache set because I'm a beginner gouache artist, and this is the beginner set that I used. The 24 set retails for $20.99, which I think is a pretty unbeatable price. You're paying less than $1 per tube. And they also have a set of 60 tubes available that retails for $49.99. So as far as price goes, I don't think you can beat Arteza at less than $1 a tube. This gouache is water-based as opposed to acrylic-based. It is pretty prone to cracking once it dries down in a palette, but I have not had any issues with it cracking on paper. It dries really quickly and actually lifts and re-wets beautifully. It layers really well, and in my experience was actually very user-friendly. If you're used to painting with watercolors, I don't think painting with a water-based gouache is going to be an extremely huge jump for you. And in my experience, the Arteza gouache came with a pretty minimal learning curve. As can be expected with gouache, the light colors dry darker and the dark colors dry lighter, but overall I've super enjoyed using this. I think the biggest challenge for me with gouache, not only the Arteza gouache, but I think this can be generalized to gouache in general, is finding the perfect paint to water ratio that is going to make your paints lay beautifully and dry opaque instead of streaky. Moral of the story is, the more I use it, the more I love it. I've created a few gouache paintings since my initial review, and I am happy to report that I am even more excited to dive into the world of gouache than I was when I first tried them. Again, I think these are great for beginners, students. Obviously, because they are tube paints, it is not going to be great for on the go or travel. But overall, I think I give this product 4 out of 5 stars. I will note that between the 24 set and the 60 set, I think you'll be perfectly happy with the set of 24. It's easier to store, and you can mix colors yourself. So I wouldn't necessarily jump at the opportunity to get more tubes when I can mix my own custom colors myself. Next, I want to talk about the real brush pens. I have the set of 24, which retails for $19.99, but it also comes in a set of 48 and 96. That seems like a lot of brush pens, but honestly, I think this is one of the rare instances where more is more. Because of the nature of this product, it is a water-based pen, but it is really difficult to mix custom colors. So I think having more pens does give you the advantage of being able to get more colors in your illustrations. This is the product that I have changed my mind about the most. This is now easily probably my favorite Arteza product that I've tried to date. When I initially reviewed this product, I was a little bit disappointed at how the markers performed dry and found myself really preferring to use them exclusively with water, but I didn't like the downtime of having to wait for the ink to seep back into the nib before I could use it again. Since then, I've come up with a few tips, some from Arteza and then some from my own personal experience. First, Arteza recommends that you store these pens horizontally. That's so that the ink can be constantly evenly distributed. When I am working with these pens, I will make sure to lay them horizontal when they are not in use to give them the best chance of that ink seeping back into the nib of the pen. Additionally, if you're using these with water and find that the ink is having a hard time getting back into the bristles, the best thing you can do is just get a piece of scrap paper and start working the brush on the piece of scrap paper, because that will actually get the ink moving a lot more quickly. The reason I know that I absolutely love these real brush pens is that I committed to painting 13 paintings with just these. I feel like I cannot say that about a lot of art supplies out there, even the ones that I like and use a lot. 13 paintings is a lot of paintings, and we're talking like back to back to back paintings. I had a lot of fun with these, and I think it's really a testament to how versatile these can be. Again, like I mentioned, this is a rare instance where I think having more is really more valuable, because you don't have to worry about feeling limited with your color palette or not being able to mix the color that you're looking for. The real brush pens also come with a water brush that is actually amazing. The reason it's not in this palette is because I actually use this fairly frequent with my artwork. I've been prepping for Inktober, and this has been kind of a staple in my Inktober adventures. Word to the wise, I do find that these feather and bleed a little bit, especially when you're using textured paper. So if you are a stickler for really clean lines, this probably isn't going to be for you, but I think these are a really incredible art supply and probably the one I recommend most from Arteza. Again, I think these are really marketed more towards beginners and students and those of you who want a super travel-friendly art supply for on the go. This is even easier than the travel watercolor palette because all you have to do is throw a couple of these into a pencil bag and you can do a lot of really fun things with them. I think my rating for these is not quite 5 out of 5, but pretty dang close at 4.5 out of 5 stars. Another thing that I really appreciate about the Real Brush pens is that the color coding system is actually compatible with one of Arteza's other art supplies that I'm going to talk about next. The Inkonic Fineliner pens. I have here the set of 48. These not only have the same color coding numbers, but also the same ink as the Real Brush pens. So if you try and like the Real Brush pens, I think there's a good chance that you'll like the Inkonic pens as well. These are not to be confused with the other fine liners that Arteza sells on their website. Those retail for a little bit cheaper and they are more geared towards journaling, whereas these are really meant to be used in illustrations. The nibs are 0.4 millimeters, which is a pretty standard size for most fine liners if you're familiar with things like Staedtler or Stabilo. These are right along that same lines, which is something that I alluded to in my specific review for this product, which again is in the iCard, so you can check it out there. While I have the set of 48, these also come in a set of 24 and of 72. The 48 set retails for $24.99, and I think it's a pretty good price for what you get. You get this nice metal tin, which is really great for storage. I've since removed those annoying little plastic trays, so if I open this right now, they're all gonna spill out, so I'm not gonna do that. But the only caution that I will give you about these pens, and the Real Brush pens in particular, is that unlike watercolor, once the ink dries, it really sets into the paper. So you're not really able to lift or reactivate the pigment once it dries. That can make it a little bit difficult to work with, but I think like most of these products, if you haven't used them before, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. Again, like the Real Brush pens, these feather on highly textured paper, and I'd say these feather even more so than the Real Brush pens. I'm not sure why, but in just my experience, these feathered quite a bit. And my overall rating for these is kind of disappointing at a 3 out of 5. They're a good product, there's just not something that I reach for or will use very often. I really haven't picked these up since my initial review. And while I'm happy I have them, I do have a feeling they're going to be sitting in the back of a drawer quite a lot. Something that isn't going to be sitting in a drawer and is actually out and on my desk quite often is the premium watercolor paper. This is a pad of 32 sheets. It's 140 pound paper or 300 GSM. This is probably the best watercolor paper that I've tried. It's easily my favorite, and I think it's honestly one of their most standout products. I used this paper with all of the art supplies that I've mentioned thus far, and it performed great on this paper. This is an acid-free cold press paper, and it comes in a variety of sizes and forms. You can get this in sketchbooks and different sizes. They do have an expert watercolor paper as well, which I have not tried, but honestly, I'm so happy with the premium paper that I definitely think this is the #1 product I'm most likely to repurchase from Arteza. You can see it comes with 32 sheets. I still have quite a bit in there. I actually gave my second pad away as a gift because I thought there was no way I would ever go through this much paper, but I use this stuff a lot. 13 paintings were painted on this paper. Trust me, I know this paper, I love this paper, and it's the only product in this video that I've given 5 out of 5 stars. Like any watercolor paper, if you don't tape this down, it will warp, but I'm not going to dock it points for that because I think that's just par for the course. The one thing I have heard people complain about with this paper in particular is the type of texture that it has can appear almost manufactured. Personally, I don't mind this, and I find that it looks almost canvas-like in the finished paintings. So I actually think it's a really beautiful texture. It's a super durable paper that holds up to a lot of blending. And trust me, your girl does a lot of blending. And there's seriously not enough good things I could say about this paper. If you haven't tried the Arteza watercolor paper, I do highly, highly recommend it. Next, we're going to be talking about the Everblend markers. I have the set of 60 here, which retails for $69.99 or just over $1 per marker. These also come in a set of 120 that retail for $118.89 or a little bit less than $1 per marker. So if you wanted to purchase the bigger set, it is a better value per marker. Personally, for me, I don't feel like I need 120 of these. That could just be because I have enough markers as it is. But I personally think markers are something that you can get away with having a little bit less of. I think one of the biggest perks about this set is that it does come with this super awesome, durable, travel-friendly case. If you watched my initial review of these markers, I did dock the case quite a bit because I don't think it's practical for at-home use. The markers are a little bit difficult to slide in and out of these slots, and once you kind of unlatch the case, it does take up a lot of space on a desk. But if you are traveling, there is really no better way to store your markers. There's also some extra room in this case for you to store some additional supplies like a sketchbook or pens and pencils, and there's even a secret pocket back here, which I think is a really nice touch. You can also attach a little shoulder strap so that you can carry this with you and be hands-free. Talking about the markers themselves, they are alcohol-based markers, dual-ended, nothing we haven't seen before. One end is a chisel nib, the other is a bullet nib or a fine tip nib, and Arteza does advertise that these nibs are replaceable, which I didn't see the listing for when I initially filmed my review, but are up on the website now, so you can purchase both replacements for the chisel nib and the bullet nib. Unfortunately, there are currently no brush nibs available, but that is something I am crossing my fingers for, and I'm very hopeful that Arteza adds in the near future. Along that same wavelength, unfortunately, the Everblend markers are not refillable. And Arteza's solution to this one is kind of interesting because they don't have the Everblend markers available in open stock, but they do offer 4 packs of any color in this range. So it's not quite a refill, not quite an open stock individual marker. It's kind of somewhere in between. I can't think of many instances where I didn't need 1 marker, but I needed 4. I don't know. I just feel like if you're not using markers super consistently, having 4 of one color can be a gamble because markers don't necessarily have a super long shelf life, so you risk the marker drying out anyway. Personally, I feel like refills is still the best solution for companies, and if they're not going to offer refills, at least offer the markers in open stock. The markers do have a triangular barrel, which does prevent them from rolling off the desk. That is a pretty standard thing for markers to do, either through the barrel shape or a little attachment on the lid to prevent the marker from rolling. Arteza is no different, so that is a nice touch. My biggest gripe about the Arteza markers, aside from the case, is the color name / numbers. Personally, the font is way too small and there are way too many numbers on each marker that it can get really genuinely confusing to identify which marker is which color. I am hopeful that this is something Arteza will change in the near future if they do ever rework these markers, and it would also be a nice touch to have the color name on the barrel itself and not just on the cap. Lastly, Arteza does not currently offer a marker compatible paper. They do sell these markers in a set with a sketchbook, but I don't necessarily think sketchbook paper is the best paper for markers. So what I would recommend is using these with any cardstock, Bristol board, or mixed media paper of your choice. Something that is a little bit thicker, a little on the heavier side, and is going to hold up to lots and lots of blending, which is what people use alcohol-based markers for. But I am also hopeful that Arteza will add a marker paper to their line in the near future, just because I feel like their papers seem to be one of their best products. My rating for the Everblend markers is a whopping 3 out of 5 stars. Let's be honest, if I'm going to be hard on any art supply, it's going to be alcohol-based markers. I have used and tried a lot of different kinds of alcohol-based markers, and these are by no means bad. They're actually pretty good. They're just not stand out, and I think for the price there are plenty of comparable markers that are of equal quality and are around the same price, if not less expensive. So unfortunately, my rating for the markers is not as high as I would have liked it to be, but I'm a pretty tough critic and a pretty tough woman to please when it comes to alcohol-based markers. Next, we're going to talk about a product that I reviewed more recently, and that is the paint markers. This is the set of 20. It retails for $19.99 and is actually the only set of paint pens that Arteza currently sells. They don't sell these in open stock, and they also do not offer any other sizes of sets. You get 20 markers in here, but only 18 colors, because you do get an extra silver and an extra gold, which are the only two metallic paint pens in this set. According to Arteza, these are oil-based, permanent, quick-drying, and non-toxic. And while I have no reason not to believe that these are non-toxic, I definitely cannot overstate that these should not be used in a poorly ventilated area, because they smell very strong. So think of like Sharpie markers turned all the way up to 10. These are very, very strongly scented, and if you use these in a poorly ventilated space, you're gonna get dizzy, you're gonna get headaches. Who knows what else will happen? Just don't do it. In my experience, these were a very fun and easy product to use. These are not a traditional paint pen in the sense that these are not something that you would just use in a sketchbook. I think their claim about these being quick drying is a little bit dependent on the surface that you are using these on, which brings me to my next point. These are kind of boring to use on regular paper, and I would not recommend using them on regular paper. These are really meant to be used on canvas or wood or literally any other surface like metal or glass or plastic. I think the fact that these are oil-based and formulated to be permanent means you're supposed to use them on unconventional surfaces. It sort of makes this less of an art supply and more of a craft supply, which is in no way a bad thing, but something that I wanted to clarify. My biggest gripe about these is that some of the colors in this set are just frankly too similar to one another to justify being in this set. I think there are definitely room for other colors that aren't in this set that could have been replaced with some of those more similar colors. I would also really appreciate having the color name on the marker itself, just because I feel like because some of these were really, really similar, it was difficult to identify them just at a quick glance. And when I'm working on art, I'm in the zone and I don't want to take the time to figure out which marker is which color, because that just adds up and frankly can be a little bit frustrating. My overall rating of the paint markers is a 3.5 out of 5. I think these are good and I will use them again when the occasion calls for it. This is not necessarily something I use very often, but I am glad I have it. And lastly, we are going to be talking about the Arteza self-adhesive vinyl. This again was a newer product to me that I tried very recently, and you can check out that video in the iCard. I made my very own vinyl decals using Arteza's self-adhesive vinyl, and something I didn't know is that Arteza actually offers a really extensive range of vinyl products. They offer heat transfer vinyl, they offer different sets, they offer just black vinyl, just white vinyl, they offer their own transfer tape, as well as their own cutting mats and cutting tools. So if you are interested in starting out in vinyl, Arteza would actually be a really awesome place to start. And I think that is my main point about this vinyl. Did I like it? Yeah. Will I use it again? Yes. But unfortunately, if you find one color that you like in this set of 42 sheets and you wanted to purchase it again, there's really no other way for you to do that, because again, Arteza does not offer these sheets in open stock. So the only way for you to do that is to purchase another set of 42 sheets. And again, you would only get one of that color. So I think if you are starting out with vinyl and you want to explore some different things, this would be a really good place to start, but you're definitely going to be limited if you want to continue making those products in the future and they're not just like plain black or plain white vinyl. You do get 40 colors in here because you get an extra glossy black and glossy white sheet. You also get some different finishes. While most of these are just like plain glossy, you have some really beautiful metallics and 2 matte sheets, 1 black and 1 white. So I think overall this is a really good starting point for anyone who's starting out in vinyl. I'm so glad I got to try this out. For my first experience with vinyl, it was a great way to get my feet wet, and I think I will continue using this set, but unfortunately I don't know that I will find a use for every single color, so some of it unfortunately might go unused. I think compared to other vinyls, you'll find that this is a little on the thin side and can be a little bit finicky to remove from the backing, but my biggest tip for that is just to let it kind of sit away from your hands. I think the heat from your hands can really affect how it peels. So my recommendation is just to kind of let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes and then come back and try peeling again. That's really worked for me, and I've had no problems with my vinyl decals lifting or peeling up at all. In fact, my daily use water bottle that I put through the wringer every single day has 2 decals on it using the Arteza vinyl, and they've held up really beautifully. So my rating for the Arteza vinyl is 4.5 out of 5 stars, and really the only thing I can dock it points for is the fact that this is not available in open stock. And I think that kind of leads me to my final closing thoughts. Arteza is a well-established company, but they're still growing and changing all of the time, which leads me to believe that a lot of the criticisms I have about these products could be changed in the near future. The products are not cheap, but they are affordable. And along that same line, their products are quality, but they're not necessarily high quality. I'll remind you again, I've really only tried products from Arteza's premium / student grade line, and I haven't tried a lot of products from their expert line or professional line, simply because there really aren't that many of them. And I don't really feel like Arteza's strong suit is their professional grade art supplies. Arteza is a place for you to try something new. It's a starting point. If you've never tried watercolors before, then absolutely one of the best watercolor palettes out there is going to be the Arteza palette. But I think eventually you would outgrow that palette and want to start exploring something that's a little bit more higher quality. It's a natural progression, but there's definitely a place for Arteza in the art market, and they're serving their population well. They are supplying us with a wide range of products at an affordable price and a pretty decent quality. I'm really happy with all the Arteza products that I've tried, and I'll definitely continue using them. The other thing I have to give them props for is that they've always been really receptive to my feedback and open to my questions. They've been really good at reaching out to me and getting back to me via email, and whoever runs their social media account is a literal gem because they like and comment on every single picture that I tag them in with really sweet, thought out comments. So as a brand, I really have nothing bad to say about Arteza. When it comes to each individual product, of course there are things that I'm going to critique, but a lot of that comes down to my personal preference and what I do with these supplies. You may feel differently, and that's okay. If you are interested in trying any of these Arteza products, I urge you to check out the description bar down below where you will find an affiliate link. This does not mean that Arteza sponsors me or sponsors the channel. It just means that they've given you guys a specific link that gives me a small commission should you choose to make a purchase through it. And it doesn't affect the cost to you, so it's literally just like a nice thing that they do. I also have a coupon code, so you can check that out as well if you want to get a small percentage off your purchase at checkout. And that really concludes this video. I hope you guys liked it and appreciate the time and thought and honesty that I put into this review. If you would like to check out any of my other Arteza reviews, you can check out this playlist, which will also be linked in the end card and in the description bar down below. Big thank you to Arteza for sending me all of these products and being open to my feedback. I really appreciate it, and you guys are a really great company to work with. And that's it. I finally finished the comprehensive Arteza review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the internet. Bye!